All right, dudes, here we go. See what we got. Been done enlisting battles. $30 more incapacitated. Buddy, I've been behind on this and was ahead. And now I'm behind on it. I don't know how the hell I managed that, but I have. Honestly don't, but I'm looking.
General quarters.
That's what it is.
Good luck and fair seas.
Good luck. No luck to it. I suck.
Autopilot mode enabled.
Awaiting instructions.
I was telling Tina about you thinking my blanket she bought me was my Trump flag. No, it's done in a while. If I'm gonna wrap up in a flag, I'd do it in that American flag because it's nylon.
Enemy force detected. Enemy battleship sighted. Enemy cruiser detected. Enemy destroyer detected.
Yeah, that's a big switch.
Enemy battleship detected.
Autopilot mode disabled.
Enemy severely damaged.
cruiser foundered.
On fire!
Enemy destroyer sunk.
Problem solved, sir. Torpedo tubes destroyed. Ship is on fire!
Crap. This is dead.
Enemy battleship sunk.
Get side out.
Enemy cruiser sunk.
My God, I don't know how the hell I've survived this. Oh, well. Last damn hell.
about to win. Enemy cruiser destroyed.
Autopilot mode enabled.
Hammer. Damn. That's fucked. Really, man? Buddy, you better be doing something, man. Chimichanga. Still baited. Yeah, I figured that. That's we got a couple of them. of them. Need 7. Yeah. 7 more. Yeah. Okay. What we got here? Now, okay. Now, just keep going at it. Save on those. How many damn slots do we got? Got a few. 44. We have 114 chips. Damn. Been quite the collection, aren't I? Saying. Quite the collection. She got there. Down. Well, that's a lot to come up with. That's our ship in an cruiser. Okay. Yes. We need 27 more. Yes. Yeah. Smoked on this damn thing for 3 months. Sure have. That chemo Thursday, bros. Dr. Casper next week. I think it's on a Wednesday. Say let's
Autopilot mode enabled.
Action stations.
try that.
All stations, defend the base. Dash it all.
That's where your best points are.
Awaiting instructions.
Affirmative.
Enemy force detected.
What the hell is that? Uh-oh. Oh, man. Oh. Son of a gun. Let's change channels. Secure mirror for a second.
Enemy cruiser detected.
Autopilot mode disabled.
The ship is on fire. Problem solved, sir.
Enemy cruiser sunk.
The ship is on fire.
Oh, man, shit.
team has taken the lead.
Enemy battleship detected.
We've destroyed an enemy cruiser.
Incapacitate one this time, that one. Damn, that thing's moving on slow, man. Oh, that's good.
Many thanks.
Affirmative.
Yeah, there's one. So. Next one. time of me here. That's good enough. We didn't even get no incapacitated. Those were neat. Okay. Okay. Yeah, 27's oh. Let's see here, bros, what we can find our lesson to here. Shorts of Obama. Okay, let's see what they got here on old Hunter B here.
We are learning a bit more about this pretty scathing, damning report put out on the Hunter Biden investigation today. It was released by special counsel David Weiss. Of course, you know, he investigated Hunter Biden for the various tax crimes and federal gun offenses that he was convicted on. So I want to read this from the Associated Press. Now, the criminal charges against Hunter Biden were the culmination of thorough, impartial investigations, not partisan politics. The prosecutor who led those probes said in a report released today that sharply criticized President Biden for having maligned the Justice Department when he pardoned his son. The report is the culmination of years-long investigations into Hunter Biden that predated the arrival of Attorney General Merrick Garland, but became among the most politically explosive inquiries of his entire tenure, capturing Republican fascination on Capitol Hill and ultimately producing a fissure between the DOJ and the White House over the treatment of the president's son. Now, the document, as is customary for reports prepared by DOJ special counsels, provides a recap of the investigative findings. But it is most notable for its steadfast defense of the team's work and for its open criticism of the president over a written statement he issued when pardoning his son last month. Now, remember, Biden had repeatedly pledged he would not pardon Hunter Biden, but reversed course December the 1st, saying that such an action was warranted because of what he called a, quote, miscarriage of justice and a, quote, selective prosecution. Biden said he believed his son had been treated differently on account of his last name and that raw politics had infected the decision-making of the Justice Department. Now, special counsel David Weiss took those allegations head-on in this report. Weiss says the president's characterizations are incorrect based on the facts in this case, and on a more fundamental level, Weiss says they are wrong. So Weiss also goes on to say, back out live to the White House, on December 1st, 2024, days before Biden was scheduled to be sentenced for his crimes, President Biden signed a full and unconditional pardon for his son, covering nearly 11 years of conduct, including conduct related to both of the convictions I obtained during my time as special counsel. Weiss goes on to say this: the pardon also encompasses uncharged conduct over those 11 years. And when he announced the pardon, President Biden simultaneously issued a press release that criticized the prosecution of his son as, quote, selective, quote, unfair, quote, infected by, quote, raw politics and a, quote, miscarriage of justice there. So Weiss directly taking on President Biden for this characterization. Weiss saying, I'm reading more from the report, quote, this statement is gratuitous and wrong. He says other presidents have pardoned family members, but in doing so, none have taken the occasion as an opportunity to malign the public servants at the Department of Justice based solely on false allegations and accusations, Weiss writes. He goes on to say, as Judge Mark Scarsi, the judge presiding over Mr. Biden's tax case, stated, quote, the Constitution provides the president with broad authority to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, but nowhere does the Constitution give the president the authority to rewrite history. So this is really a scathing report by Special Counsel David Weiss, while Hunter Biden's attorney, Abby Lowell, responded in kind, issuing this statement today, saying this: David Weiss's 27-page report continues to ignore some of the major mysteries of his 7-year investigation. Mr. Weiss conveniently omits his proposal to resolve this investigation in 2023 with a pair of misdemeanors and a diverted gun charge recommended by career prosecutors. Weiss also fails to explain why he reneged on his own agreement, a reversal that came at the 11th hour in court as he and his office faced blistering attacks from Republicans and his then filing unprecedented charges for someone with no aggravating gun factors who had paid his taxes in full years before the charges were filed. Finally, in Those Curious, Mr. Weiss fails to clarify why he and his prosecutors pursued wild and debunked conspiracies about Mr. Biden by a Russian agent that prolonged this investigation and ultimately cost taxpayers millions of dollars. What is clear from this report is that the investigation into Hunter Biden is a cautionary tale of the abuse of prosecutorial power. So wanted to make sure we got everything in on that front there. So Special Counsel David Weiss with this scathing report, and we wanted to get that in.
More boxes, more options. Grainger has over 1,700 box types in stock and ready to help you pack, store, and ship everything.
He's friggin' mess. Biden is. What the hell?
All right, with just days until he leaves office for the last time, President Biden admitting his regrets about how it all played out.
Mr. President, do you regret your decision to run for re-election?
I think I would have beaten Trump, could have beaten Trump, and I think that Kamala could have beaten Trump. But I didn't want to be one who caused a party that wasn't unified to lose an election.
Well, now even one CNN host says nonsense.
She ran against him and she lost. That's just nonsensical.
Well, I think he was trying to give her kudos for running a strong campaign. I think he was.
I think he was trying to backtrack after he's been spending the last couple months, like basically dissing her.
No, I don't think that's fair.
He says I could have won.
Fox News contributor Joe Concha joins me now. Joe, good morning to you. Okay, two-part question. What do you think about the president's comments and the reaction to them?
They are not based in reality, Carly. Look, Joe Biden's own internal polling showed him, if he were to stay in the race, would have lost to Donald Trump. Trump would have had 400 electoral votes if Biden stayed in, because Harris jumped in and then the media got behind her and tried to paint her as some sort of, joy candidate, the suburb brat. She's going to be great. She's actually not the vice president you've been seeing over the last 3.5 years. Well, it turned out that Donald Trump only won 312 electoral votes every swing state. She only won 226. So Donald Trump turned 48 of 50 states more red when compared to the last election. The Democratic brand is broken. It wouldn't have mattered who ran. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Josh Shapiro, Gretchen Whitmer, Gavin Newsom. They would have lost because the country is going in the wrong direction. If you look at poll after poll showing that 75% of Americans think that it is going in the wrong direction. And look, it's clear after what we saw at the Kennedy Center last month, after what we saw at the Carter funeral last week, that the Bidens do not like Kamala Harris on a personal level. When you see Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Doug Emhoff, it's like looking at the Starks and the Lannisters if you watched Game of Thrones. Two families that didn't like each other, and Carly clearly watched Game of Thrones. The fact is that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, from a political perspective, Carly, that was an arranged marriage. Joe Biden said that he would only choose a woman of color to serve as his vice president back in 2020, which basically left him three choices: Stacey Abrams, Karen Bass, and Kamala Harris. And Kamala and Joe never liked each other, reportedly, because they're going to go off to the sunset now, with Kamala possibly being the next governor of California if she runs, or the 2028 Democratic nominee. I'll tell you this, if that's the case, the latter, 2028 Democratic nominee, Carly, Republicans will surely embrace that rematch if it's Kamala versus J.D. Vance, for example, because, again, she's not a good candidate at all.
One can only speculate. But, yeah, you don't need to be a body language expert to see how prickly things were between the Bidens and Kamala Harris at the funeral. Okay, we also got to dive into the changes that Mark Zuckerberg are making at Facebook, with getting rid of the left-leaning fact checkers also going on. Mark Zuckerberg went on Joe Rogan's podcast and talked about the immense pressure that the Biden administration put on him to delete things about COVID that were true, aka tried and true government censorship. So add a new twist to this. The CEO of another left-leaning fact-checking organization, Snopes, is weighing in. Watch what he had to say.
Let's look at the most famous example of Facebook censoring content, and that was the Hunter Biden laptop story. And we say, well, it was fact checkers, right, who told Zuckerberg to limit the reach of that? No, it was the government. If Kamala Harris would have won, would he be taking any of these same actions now? No. He complied with what the government wanted then, and he's complying with what the new administration wants now.
So, Joe, what do you think about this? The actual government censorship and clear admission of it happening, and Mark Zuckerberg's latest actions and the reason behind them?
Well, look, the CEO of Snopes wants to stay in business. That's why he's saying that the government was to blame as far as, the fact-checking that went on after COVID, for example. Like, maybe the coronavirus came from a lab that studies coronaviruses in Wuhan, China, where the actual virus originated. So when Facebook would censor an argument like that, it was so utterly ridiculous. And this is why fact-checkers need to start updating their LinkedIn page at this point, because they have been exposed to be just as biased as the people they're supposedly fact-checking. And I love the fact that Twitter, now X, Elon Musk, they have this thing called community notes, which is basically crowdsourcing of an argument if it's made on that site.
Hey guys, did you know some drivers are ditching their car insurance and they're doing this instead?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, it's everywhere. You can't avoid it in the news, and it shouldn't be avoided. It's so horrible. The fires we have now in Southern California that are devastating, so much there, so much value, so much lost, and up to 24 lost lives now. It's an incredibly unnecessary happening. They've been raging in L.A. It happens every year with the Santa Ana winds. But up in the Northern California portion that I represent, we've had that devastation already many times. Town of Paradise, town of Greenville, town of Canyon Dam, and others completely obliterated. Now, our Governor Gavin Newsom has been up there to see those fires, especially the Paradise one, when President Trump came to Paradise and visited to see the devastation. So at the time, President Trump asked him and others, what are you doing to clear the land in such a way that makes it less fire prone, to rake the forest floor.
Autopilot mode
people made fun of that word rake, which is actually a technical term for some of the equipment used in forestry, to make sure areas can be a little more fire safe by thinning trees, removing brush, removing dead material on that. So the question is, as Governor Newsom goes out on site and waves his arms and tells us it's someone else's fault, then what has he learned in the last 6 years? And more importantly, what has he applied since he had this photo op in Paradise as the new governor of California? It looks like not much action. Certain promises are made to be aggressive on land management in California, and certain claims are made, but the actual numbers are 1/5 of the amount claimed that had been treated, that had been the work that had been done in California. So we've seen time after time, more and more fires. The Camp Fire in Paradise, listed here, 85 lives lost, 90% of the homes. The Carr Fire near Redding, the Zog Fire on the other side of Redding, the Park Fire last year, 400,000 acres from Chico all the way up to Mount Lassen. The Dixie Fire, 1 million acres. This is all Northern California. Now, Southern California is getting international coverage, and rightfully so. So what are we going to do? What is Newsom going to do? Well, he wants to blame it on climate change. And so we see time and time again, we're hearing about climate change. We're hearing about carbon dioxide. Well, here's the same chart I show often on this floor. Carbon dioxide represents 0.04% of the atmosphere, and it's barely changed. Look at the rest of the chart, what isn't CO2. And they want to just make it a climate change story. So, what are we doing to make things more fire resilient in Southern California? This is a reservoir, the Santa Ynez Reservoir, just up the hill from Pacific Palisades. The portion on the right here is what it looks like more or less when it's full. Here's what it looks like presently. It's empty. It's been empty since last February. They've been fooling around for nearly a year, supposedly repairing the cover over the thing. And so it holds 117 million gallons of water. And they report to us that there's 3 1 million gallon tanks that ran out by the third one by 3 a.m. on the night of the fire above Pacific Palisades. What would another 117, approximately 40 times the storage of those 3 tanks, been able to do for them had it been available? Had the maintenance been done? Well, the governor's going to start an investigation on it now. Kind of like when he starts an investigation on high gas prices due to policies he does to drive up the cost of fuel and make it not available and make the refineries not available and not quit drilling for fuel in California, which we have so much abundance of near that Bakersfield area, etc. So what are we doing here? Why is this empty? Why has it been empty for nearly a year to make a little repair in the cover that may have been able to be done by reservoir staff? It's incompetent at all levels here. And so what do we have going on? Is there enough water supply? He says, well, you know, we have plenty of water. Well, presently, next poster, this is Shasta Dam in Northern California. Let's flip it over, please. And we have, it's dumping water right now. It's dumping water out because it still has 1 million acre feet of space left. But it's dumping water because they want to have room at the top to conserve for more weather. Okay, I guess I understand that. But what are they doing with that water down below? Newsom's plans have stopped the Delta pumps from running at full capacity to fill other water systems around the state, such as San Luis Reservoir, which is about 70% full right now and doesn't have a storage problem for flood, as well as making sure the aqueducts are filling all the other reservoirs, such as the one we just looked at, Santa Ynez. They could fill that in a short amount of time. The amount of water that runs out due to wastage running through the Delta in an hour would fill that Santa Ynez Reservoir. And it would take a long time locally because they have to rely on either wells or coming from some other water source. We have quite ascertained. It's hard to find the information.
Problem solved, sir.
Governor Newsom, are you going to help, or are you going to be a detriment and just go on camera and blame everybody else and blame the president? We need real work done on to make fire conditions much safer in California and the West.
Time is expired. Gentleman yields back.
In the next 60 seconds, I'm going to show you how to naturally control blood sugar and naturally increase insulin sensitivity. I've got 3 natural compounds to use today to simply and quickly increase insulin sensitivity naturally and get control over the craving once again. Now, the first thing is what's known as berberine. Berberine is an alkaloid extract taken from various plants, and it's been used in traditional Chinese medicine for centuries. Some of the benefits of berberine include anti-inflammatory and anti-diabetic effects, improved intestinal health, improved cholesterol, increased exercise performance, and decreased blood pressure. Next up, we have cinnamon Ceylon oil.
Governor Chris Christie, welcome back.
Good to be back. Happy New Year, Brian.
Governor, one of your great qualities is how well you act in the clutch. When Sandy hit, people saw the results. You were hands-on. If things went wrong, you were sitting right there. You saw it. You demanded accountability. It's one of the things I'm not seeing from California, and I know you know Gavin Newsom, and I've never seen anything like it. He basically says, yeah, it's pretty bad. I got to find out what happened, as if he's not the governor of the state.
It's an enormous failure, Brian, and an enormous disappointment for the people of California, and now a tragedy for all those families that have been affected. And when you're the governor of a state and a natural disaster happens, there is no one more accountable than you. There can be no one who the public is relying upon more than you. And you can't sit there and say, geez, what about, I don't know, let me find out. You have to be on top of it right from the beginning. These fires started. We knew they were coming. We knew they were expanding. And for him not to know and to go in there and take charge. I mean, look, when Sandy happened, we had problems from all different types of municipalities that were affected. We took it over. We managed the crisis. And that's what a governor is expected to do. And his failure to do that, but more importantly, his failure to communicate with his people and let them know what's going on, what can be done, what will be done. These are people without homes, are now sitting, looking for a place to live. This is just what happened in Sandy. We got people places to live. We did what we needed to do. He's not doing it, and he's going to be judged very harshly for it.
Yeah, but not him. He's going to judge other people. He's doing an independent investigation. Listen to this question and the answer. Cut 17.
Ultimately here, does the buck stop with you?
I mean, you're governor of California. Everybody will be the mayor of California. We're all in this together. We're all better off. We're all better off. We're all better off. And we're working together to take care of people and to make sure people are supported, we're empathetic. And we're here not just in the immediacy of the crisis, but we're here after the crisis, as opposed to creating a crisis in the middle of this by trying to divide people and play political.
So can you help me with this? I'm bad at comprehension. Does the buck stop with him? What did he say?
It's a complete word salad because he's trying to avoid responsibility and accountability. And let me tell you, if you want to avoid responsibility and accountability, don't run for governor. Being governor is all about responsibility and accountability. And he avoided it. He was kind of sideways blaming the mayor. He was also taking a shot at President-elect Trump. This is not the time to play partisan politics. You know, the fact of the matter is, Gavin Newsom is going to need President-elect Trump in 7 days and in the days to follow to help the people that he represents recover from this crisis. And taking political shots at Donald Trump is not the thing to be doing at this point as a responsible governor. No matter how Gavin Newsom feels about Donald Trump, that doesn't matter. The American people have elected Donald Trump to be the president, and it's your obligation as the governor to work in good faith with him, not to take political shots at him. So that is a complete lack of accountability and credibility, and quite frankly, Governor Newsom should be ashamed of himself.
So, Governor, before I knew you in 1992, I was out in California, and I was just living in a one-room apartment, and it burned to the ground. Lost everything, but I had nothing. I had no family, wasn't married, and it was fascinating because I saw the whole process, and we had no cell phones. There were no cell phones, period. So 92. So you had to run around, you had to meet people at central locations, you had to find out what you were eligible for, then you had to see what discounts you could get at the Gap or Sears were offering, and you literally were trying to rebound and find out where to go. And you need people on the same page. And we were able to communicate, it's hard to believe, effectively, but there was organization. I never felt like it was unorganized as everything burned to the ground and it stayed like that for about 10, 15 years. It is so important right now to let people know they get $44,000, to let people know what you could put towards, if you live paycheck to paycheck, and all of a sudden someone says, I need first and last for you to stay there for 6 months, where's that money coming from? You must have dealt with that. How did you get the information to all these people in these dire circumstances?
Every day, Brian.
Autopilot mode enabled.
3 press events a day. Some from our emergency operations center in Trenton, but 2 a day on the ground in a place that had been affected so that people could hear from us directly in those local communities. We would bring FEMA representatives with us to those events, HUD representatives with us to those events, and representatives of the state government, and then we would set up tables right at that event in those communities with those people sitting there so that citizens can come and ask questions and get help right then. That's being responsible and accountable for making sure that people know what they're entitled to get in this moment of crisis and getting it to them. We went to them. We went to the affected communities and not only communicated all this information 3 times a day, but also sat there in those communities on the ground, boots on the ground, to answer those questions face to face. Because sometimes people don't want to get on a telephone. They want to see a face. And in our administration, the Christie administration, were folks who, were very much in touch with the folks that we represented. We would be there to give them a hug, to let them know that we cared about them and help them.
Yeah, the other thing was I lost everything in Sandy. We got 3 feet of water too, so I'm a walking catastrophe. But then with a family, yeah, I know I'm bad luck. Please make sure we don't hang out again. But I remember there were central locations where we knew where to go. Also, the SBA loans. People are like, hey, I have money. Well, an SBA loan, which is above interest, which is below the interest rate, might be something your family wants to do, because maybe you got to get ahead. Yeah.
I mean, look, people are going to need cash to be able to get a new place to live temporarily. They're going to need cash to be able to replace things like beds, clothes, electronic equipment they need to communicate, all the things that they lost that are functional. Not to mention, Brian, the heartbreaking. I went through this. We lost everything in a flood back in the late 90s. And it's heartbreaking. The photo albums, the memories that you lose, the videos of our children, those are things that can't be replaced. So what government needs to do is to step up to the plate and be there to give them the cash they need to replace the things that are replaceable. And Governor Newsom has failed, and Mayor Bass, quite frankly, looks like she doesn't know what's going on either. I mean, and what people need more than anything else, and I will tell you, up until today, and Sandy is now 12 years ago, I have people who come up to me in New Jersey and say, thank you for making us feel safe after Sandy. It's about how you make people feel. Is government there to do what they need to do, protect and serve the public?
And the other thing is, too, is that as somebody who's, if you're leading your family or if you're in charge, after like that minute moment where you're like sad and upset, okay, now you need a plan. And that's how you should be thinking. Well, I got to get through this day. I got to get the kids back in school. I got to get back to work. How do I get this money? Where are we going to stay? Is this hotel going to kick me out? Gavin Newsom was asked about the mayor. Tell me if this is a vote of confidence. Cut 18.
Do you have faith in Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass?
I have absolute faith in our community. I have faith in our leaders. I have the faith of our capacity to work together.
Does he ever answer a question? Would it read between the lines there?
You know what that means? Don't let the door hit you in the rear end on the way out. There's already, from what I understand, over 90,000 people who have signed an online petition to recall the mayor. My guess is that Gavin Newsom has his finger up in the air, feeling for the political winds, and sees they're blowing against Karen Bass. And since this is a guy who all he wants to do is run for president of the United States, Brian, that's all he's worried about at the moment. What he should be worried about is doing his damn job. And if you do your job well, people reward you. And if you don't do it well, they don't. And by the way, if you do your job well and you accept accountability and responsibility, people will understand that you can't fix every problem like that. But you've got to be showing them that you're working hard and you're willing to take that responsibility. And with answers like that, Brian, you're exactly right. This is a guys who won't answer questions are guys who know the answers aren't good ones, and they don't want to give them.
So the fire chief has really separated herself from the mayor. And because she got her budget cut. And this is a microcosm of where this country's at. We don't want to give all our money to illegal immigrants. We don't want to give it to DEI directors to make $350,000 to tell us how racist we are. We're done with that. And they guess who they're underfunding? The fire department. Listen to Kristen Crowley on KTTV, cut 20.
Did they fail you? That is our job. And I tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs. Did they fail you? Yes. When a firefighter comes up to a hydrant, we expect there's going to be water. We don't control the water supply. Our firefighters are there to protect lives and property and to make sure that we're properly trained and equipped.
And when they cut $17 million out of her budget, she spoke up at the time and said, are you kidding me? I can't do this. I need to double. There's a double amount of people since 2010, but you want less firefighters to do it. And what about in a time like this when you feel as though I got to make it clear, I told them about this?
Look, she's doing her job, right? There's a contrast in leadership, right? You listen to that fire chief, and at least on that particular issue, she made it very clear what she needed, and she didn't dodge the question. They asked, did you fail? Did they fail you? She said yes. I mean, that's what people, it's not a good answer to have to give, but it's the honest answer to give. And people deserve honesty and candor from their elected officials, not political gamesmanship, which is what they're getting from Governor Newsom and Mayor Bass right now. And so, look, they are going to have to figure out how all this happened and why, but that's for later. Right now, it's about taking care of the people whose lives have been destroyed. I was watching a TV segment yesterday, Brian, to see the 5 members of a family had 5 different homes in the same neighborhood. They're all gone. Yep. And you see those people standing over the rubble of their homes, and one of their sisters died in the fire.
Wow.
And they found her remains on the grounds there. I mean, the tragedies that these people are feeling right now, they need the government to be honest, direct, and lend a helping hand. They don't need them to be playing the political games that Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass are playing right now.
So what do you do when you're President Trump and you're president-elect? You're not the president yet. Would you go out there this week?
Look, I think that the president-elect, that's going to be his instinct, is going to be to go out there. The question is going to be, is it safe to go out there? I understand that there may be some more fires coming. And so I think they're going to consider whether he can be helpful in any way. I think one of the ways the president-elect could be really helpful is to have his designate for Homeland Security, Governor Noem, who is obviously a governor who's dealt with crises in her particular state, and have, the members of his FEMA leadership be saying, here's what we're going to do starting on January 20th. And lend a beacon of hope out there. And whether he has to do that on the ground in California, or whether he could do it from Florida at Mar-a-Lago, or whether he could do it from Washington, I don't think it matters as much where he is, but that he tells people, here's the Trump plan. Starting on January 20th for how we're going to take this thing over. And if Gavin Newsom doesn't want to do the job as President of the United States, Donald Trump, I believe, will say, I'll do it.
Governor, 20 seconds left. Do you think Trump should say, listen, there's strings attached. I want you taking that water from San Francisco. I want you to stop with, you got to start deforesting the forest and clean this place up.
I think that should be part of the Trump plan.
Okay.
He should be laying out, these are the things that need to be done. He almost has to come in and substitute for what is an absentee governor and an absentee mayor right now. And I think that's what he should do.
Governor Chris Christie, always great. Thanks so much for your expertise.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
When you have these woke revolutions, it requires all of us at some point to say, no, not going to do this. A nation has to have civic education. They have to know what the Constitution is. They have to know what the First Amendment is. They have to have some idea who the people were that died at Shiloh, what Okinawa was about, who Andrew Jackson was, who Lincoln was.
And welcome to Hannity, and we start tonight with a Fox News alert. At this hour, more bad news for California. Dangerous wildfires are now back in Los Angeles, as well as Santa Ana winds. Firefighters continue to battle that blaze. Here now with the very latest, he's on the ground, our very own Matt Finn. Matt, it's been brutal. We got another 72 hours of high winds, and a lot of towns in jeopardy right now.
Yeah, Sean, it's so tragic that we are talking about these near hurricane level winds returning here to Southern California. We will keep you updated on that over the next couple of days. And look, it's nighttime here right now. People are concerned about looting. Police and the National Guard have been beefing up blockades here and in the Palisades area. And I want to show you a picture I took just a few doors down from where I'm standing. Homeowners put up a big sign in their windows saying homeowners are home and have guns, beware. That's the kind of feeling happening here in and around Los Angeles. Not far from where I am, I talked to a gentleman named Billy. He says he's within the fire zone here in Altadena. He's not leaving. He says he's acting like the neighborhood watch. Here's Billy.
I mean, just knowing somebody's there watching you, you know, like the old-fashioned, you know, neighborhood watch where they know somebody's watching them. They're less likely to do things.
And just a few hours ago, the new district attorney here in Los Angeles announced charges against 9 people for looting. At least 24 others have been arrested so far. Sean.
All right, Matt Finn will be checking in throughout the night. We'll have a lot more on the failure of elected officials out in California. But we start tonight on a high note. Less than 7 days, 1 week from today, Joe Biden will be out of the White House for good. At this time next week, Donald Trump will once again be the president of our country. Joe is leaving behind a colossal mess for President Trump. America's second largest city is in ruins, more than 40,000 acres gone, filled with homes and businesses and schools, entire communities burned to the ground. We have a death toll now, 24 and going higher. Over 12,000 structures, they have been destroyed, and the fires, they continue to burn completely out of control. Water remains scarce or completely unavailable. Finger pointing and blame are running rampant. And last week, the LA Fire Department was sent out to battle the blaze without water. Crucial fire hydrants, they were dry. A key reservoir was completely empty. Taxpayer-funded reservoirs, 5 of them that was supposed to be built. The voters approved of this in a referendum in 2014. They were never built. Nobody informed the firefighters. Pleas by the police, the fire chief were completely ignored. Firefighters' budget was cut. Billions yet set aside for wind turbines. Over $650 million federal state dollars allocated to make the port of Los Angeles green, whatever that means. Nobody had a backup plan. You know, nobody was ready to go. Nobody had water tankers lined up to save these neighborhoods. Nobody's taking responsibility, not the president, not the governor, not the mayor, not the fire chief. Take a look.
Did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city?
It's my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say, justifiably, what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community.
Did they fail you?
That is our job. And I tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs.
Did they fail you?
Yes.
The $17 million budget cut and the elimination of our civilian positions like our mechanics did and has and will continue to severely impact our ability to repair our apparatus. Over the last 3 years, been clear that the fire department needs help. We can no longer sustain where we are. We do not have enough firefighters. With that, I have also requested multiple budgets, interim budgets, to show how understaffed, under-resourced, and underfunded the LAFD is.
Now, as the city's fire budget was just slashed by tens of millions of dollars, the city, the state, they spent lavishly on libraries, green energy boondoggles, social justice programs, DEI initiatives. The state is a sanctuary state. LA is a sanctuary city. Untold hundreds of millions of dollars spent on illegals for their food, their housing, their health care, their education. It is the highest tax state in the entire country. They were not prepared for what was a predictable wildfire with predictable Santa Ana winds. But the California legislature, well, they did just pass a $50 million deal to Trump-proof the state of California. It's a great way to ingratiate themselves to the new president. Gavin, great move. Meanwhile, around L.A., the dry brush was not managed at all. The science of forestry You can get a degree in it. As we pointed out, it was ignored. The fire department was short-staffed, preoccupied with equity. None of California's overpaid bureaucracy and political class, none of them did their jobs. Now, none of the city's critical fire infrastructure and emergency planning was properly tested. Now, the mayor, Karen Bass, was in Africa when the fire erupted, despite an earlier forecast of heavy winds and the risk of wildfires, and a promise she wouldn't travel as the mayor of Los Angeles. The governor indicated it was not his problem. This is local governments. They need to figure out those fire hydrant things themselves. And yet again, the Biden administration was caught totally flat-footed, completely unprepared. The people of California were failed by a Democratic mayor, a far-left bureaucracy, a governor, a Democratic legislature, a Democratic president. And by the way, guess in the end who's going to end up paying for the rebuild? You. Mark my words. And this is a Democratic president that can barely form a coherent thought, much less manage a major disaster. We saw that with Hurricane Helene. Look at the people in North Carolina. They're still struggling to this day. He didn't seem to remember that Donald Trump beat Kamala Harris in November. Take a look.
Mr. President, do you regret your decision to run for re-election? Do you think that that made it easier for your predecessor to now become your successor?
I don't think so. I think I would have beaten Trump, and I think that Kamala could have beaten Trump and would have beaten Trump.
There's no other way to put this. Joe Biden is out of it, delusional, a cognitive mess. In fact, he just said with a straight face that illegal immigration came way down when he became president. Can't make it up. You decide.
Look, let's get something in mind about the border. When I became president, the numbers came way down, number one. Number two, we had a circumstance where I pushed very hard for a bipartisan agreement to put more people on the border, more Secret Service agents.
Autopilot mode disabled.
Okay, this is nowhere close to reality. His border bill was an amnesty bill. This is a complete, total delusion on his part. All right, take a look at the numbers. Remember that chart? You might remember that, Butler, PA. You see that massive spike, on the right side of your screen? Yeah, that would be Biden. But the delusions, they don't stop there. Today, Biden announced that America is stronger than ever, and the world is a more peaceful place. Maybe nobody told him there's war in Europe and war in the Middle East. Maybe he forgot. Take a look.
Compared to 4 years ago, America is stronger. Our alliances are stronger. Our adversaries and competitors are weaker. We have not gone to war to make these things happen. During my presidency, I've increased America's power in every dimension. We've increased our diplomatic power, creating more allies than the United States has ever had in the history of our nation. Today, I can report to the American people, our adversaries are weaker than were when we came into this job 4 years ago. Just consider Russia. When Putin invaded Ukraine, he thought he'd conquer Kyiv in a matter of days. The truth is, since that war began, I'm the only one that stood in the center of Kyiv, not him.
Okay, beyond laughable, actually sad. I guess a preview of coming attractions. His, farewell address is coming this week. A third-rate terrorist organization is still holding Americans hostage if they're alive in Gaza. New wars in Europe and the Middle East, they continue to rage. And China, Iran, Russia are more hostile than they have ever been. They've been emboldened by Joe and Kamala's weakness. And just remember, according to Joe Biden, anything bad that happens around the world or here at home is not his fault. It's climate change. It's climate alarmism. That's always the culprit. Not that, it's Donald Trump. Take a look.
I know some incoming administration, some in the incoming administration are skeptical about the need for clean energy. They don't even believe climate change is real.
Paying your bills on time raises your credit score, right? Wrong. In fact, this is the first of 3 major credit score lies you're being told by the big credit companies. Fall for any of these 3 lies, it doesn't matter what you do. Getting to 720 and above will be a long, hard struggle, if you ever get there at all. In fact, if you're one of the 152 million Americans with a credit score below 720, it's probably because you've unknowingly fallen for one or more of these 3 deadly lies that the big credit companies want you to believe. Not only are these lies flat out wrong, not only do they make it nearly impossible to get a great credit score, but in many cases, fall for them and you'll send your score spiraling in the wrong direction. Which is why right now, I'm going to expose these 3 dangerous lies. Tell you exactly what to do instead. Finally, show you the proven, little-known, 100% legal trick that can raise your scores practically on command. And it's so easy and convenient. You can start using it as soon as today from the comfort of your own home to boost your credit scores in as little as 5 minutes. Doesn't even matter if your score is stuck in the 500s or below right now. This trick takes advantage of a little-known loophole written directly into the consumer credit laws. So it's legally guaranteed to work for you.
Autopilot mode enabled.
Believe me when I say, implement this 5-minute trick, you'll find yourself soaring right through this secret loophole in the credit system.
I think they come from a different century. They're wrong. They are dead wrong. It's the single greatest existential threat to humanity.
No, it's not. Joe Biden does not have a grasp on reality. Over the past 4 years, while Biden struggled cognitively, the media lied for him, his staff lied for him, far-left bureaucrats, elected Democrats, they have wreaked nothing but havoc on our country. They neglected the basics. They focused on woke social issues. They sacrificed your safety, your security for feelings of victimhood. They opened up our borders. They allowed in terrorists, known terrorists, murderers, rapists, criminals, cartel members, gang members. We have to find them and we have to send them home. And they turned our justice system into a politicized, weaponized arm of the Democratic Party on top of everything. And now it will be up to Donald Trump. 1 week from tonight, it begins. And his administration to fix the country, restore the American dream. It's a heavy lift. It won't be easy. Anyway, here with analysis. Fox News contributor, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. By the way, he has a new documentary coming out. It's going to be on PBS called Journey to America. I've got details on my website, Hannity.com. Mr. Speaker, congratulations. Great to have you. 1 week from tonight, Donald Trump beat the odds. He beat the legacy media. He beat 9 years of smear, slander, and besmirchment. And he will be called President Trump yet again.
Well, look, I hold my breath to get through 7 more days of Joe Biden. I mean, every day he seems to find a new way to weaken America, to make Trump's job harder, to assert things that are patently false. And I think for the country's sake, the sooner we can get to that inauguration, the sooner we could wave goodbye as he goes back to Delaware, the safer the country will be. And until that happens, I frankly remain worried about what he may do in the next few days that will be truly destructive.
So look at California as a model. All right, the highest tax state. They have all of these new Green Deal boondoggles, $650 million. How do you make the port of Los Angeles green with $650 million? Billions set aside for wind turbines. But we have fire hydrants in a state known for wildfires, known for high winds called Santa Ana winds, both very predictable. They don't practice the science of forestry, and they don't have water. The reservoir in the Pacific Palisades was empty, and then they just point fingers at each other and then blame Trump. Explain that to me.
Sure, look, I think what you see in California, in Chicago, in Baltimore City, around the country, is you see a machine. The machine gradually gets weaker, sicker, dumber, less capable of doing anything effective. It has a set of values that are weird, so that paying for art is really good, but paying for the fire department is really bad. Or paying for whatever the latest idea that some left-wing nut has is a really good thing, but paying for police is bad. And the result is all of this was avoidable. I'm confident that Los Angeles will, in fact, be back, just as Chicago was after the Great Fire of 1871, or as San Francisco was after the Great Earthquake of 1906. But all of this was avoidable.
But Mr. Speaker, it's 2025. We understand how to prevent forest fires. You know, we understand that you need water to put them out.
Let me give you an example of how really stupid this is. The Reagan Library had goats that ate the shrubs. And when they had a big fire in the Simi Valley, it didn't get to the library because all of the shrubs that would have caught fire had been eaten by the goats. Laguna Beach right now has the same program. They have goats that eat the shrubs. This is not necessarily a high-tech trillion-dollar problem. But when you have left-wing cuckoos who are incompetent and who rise basically in an incestuous machine where who you know is more important than what you can do, you have a steady downward decline in the ability just to be competent. And that's what's happening right now in California.
And this is where the Democratic Party would take the country if they had their way. All right. So Donald Trump spoke about one big, beautiful bill. Senate Republicans are talking about two bills. You feel very strongly it should be one. Okay. The consensus seems to be moving towards two. How can you do one or two and still get it right?
Well, look, I'm very worried, and I'm happy to talk to the Senate Republicans. I'm very worried that if they split the bills, the bill that really matters for the 2026 election is the tax cut, affordability, greater take-home pay, and more jobs bill. That's the one that really matters. And if we lose the House next year because the Senate refuses to pass a bill in a timely way, this will be a disaster that will tie up the last 2 years of the Trump administration, just as Nancy Pelosi did after we lost in 18. Remember, the House and Senate leaders in 17 convinced Trump to wait. They didn't pass the tax cut until December. It didn't have an effect in 18. We lost 40 seats. Now, why the Senate can't get its act together bothers me a great deal. I hope they will reverse themselves. And if they fail to pass the tax cut by Memorial Day, as Speaker Johnson wants, or by July 4th, which I think is absolutely the last time, then we are drifting as a party towards a really bad 2026 that's totally avoidable.
They'll succeed
if they would just get their act together.
And I think it's going to take the American people calling their
the Senate.
Yeah.
Look, the Senate's going to stay Republican in all probability. They don't have the same sense of urgency. And, you know, senators like to have multiple bites at the apple. But in fact, in the House, you need to have one big bill. You need to have about 2.5 months of President Trump stumping for it. There are 13 Democrats in seats that Trump carried, another 21 Democrats that are in seats that he got within 5%. If he goes out and holds town hall meetings and rallies in those districts, just as they did this last week with the Lake and Riley bill, they're going to get a bunch of Democrats voting with us, and we will pass the bill.
Newt Gingrich, we appreciate it. Thank you. By the way, joining us now with reaction, incoming Trump White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen Miller. 1 week from tonight, we'll have a lot to talk about. If you come back on this program, what will we likely be able to say that Donald Trump accomplished in his first few hours as president?
Well, I'll be glad to come back, Sean, and have that conversation with you then. And here's what I will say. The one thing that President Trump has been clear and consistent about this entire campaign is as soon as he gets into the Oval Office, he's going to sign the most comprehensive border security package by executive order in American history. These executive orders will not only fully shut down the southern border, stop illegal immigration, begin the mass deportation of illegal aliens and criminals in our country, it will also begin the process of eradicating the criminal cartel threat from this country once and for all, systematically dismantling every single transnational street gang that is raping, murdering, maiming, attacking, and otherwise wreaking havoc against our citizens. That bill will ensure that every single element of this government is committed to restoring our national sovereignty. State Department, Defense Department, Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, FBI, ATF, DEA, ICE, and Border Patrol. The president has also been clear. He's going to drill, baby, drill. He said this from the beginning. He's going to unleash American energy. He's going to get control of the federal government, the federal workforce. He's going to bring workers back to their offices. He's going to end the travesty in which federal workers are pretending to work but are not actually working. They're at home watching Netflix while you're paying their salaries. He's going to make sure that the federal bureaucracy is accountable to the president and thus to the American people. He's going to stop sending taxpayer dollars overseas where it does not belong, and he's going to stop funding radical left-wing NGOs that hate Americans and hate the American people, and he is going to stop the insanity of waste all across this federal government, and he's going to fight to bring down inflation and to make life affordable again for Americans, and so many other executive actions in the first day, in the first week, all throughout this presidency, Sean.
It sounds like shock and awe. If you had to guess, first 2 days, how many executive orders?
Well, I don't want to say exactly what number, but I will say this. In terms of total executive actions, in other words, specific commands that President Trump is delivering, there will be over 100 executive actions, commands to the bureaucracy to change their ways.
Change is coming, and it's needed, and not a moment too soon.
Big change is coming.
Stephen Miller.
Leftism's discredited. Trump is coming to save America. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen next week.
All right, appreciate it. We'll be watching closely. When we come back, Gavin Newsom trying to defend his horrific response to the California wildfires. We'll explain. And special counsel David Weiss ripping Joe Biden to shreds in his long-awaited report on his investigation into Hunter. That and more straight ahead tonight on Hannity. L.A. Mayor Karen Bass, California Governor Gavin Newsom, they are on defense amid California's devastating wildfires. Governor Newsom launched a fact-check website to try to save face, but as always with Newsom, it's kind of a catch. The website includes links to a Democratic Party fundraising platform, and when he's not soliciting donations for the Democratic Party, well, he has spent the last week deflecting blame to local officials and, of course, Donald Trump. Anyway, here with reaction, Fox News contributor Katie Pavlich, nominee for U.S. Ambassador to Israel. I think he'll be a great one. Mike Huckabee is with us. Katie, start with you. I mean, how do you make if you have empty reservoirs and you're going to say, well, that's up to the local people. If you have fire hydrants in a state known for wildfires and known for Santa Ana winds, how do you blame the local officials? How do you justify billions for turbines, hundreds of millions for the L.A. port going green, and not have a fire hydrant that works everywhere? Can you explain that?
Well, I can explain that this is just the way the left sees, quote, leadership. You know, Gavin Newsom could have done all of these things to help prevent this horrific, awful disaster, but he didn't, because he was more interested in virtue signaling and placating to these green groups that are grifting off of the American taxpayer, including in California. He was more interested in banning plastic straws and forcing people to drive electric vehicles that they don't want than he was focused on actually doing real governance, which, yes, includes filling reservoirs and making sure the state is prepared for wildfires. There are states all over the West that have to do this, and yet he completely failed. And this is what happens when virtue signaling and feel-good policies are put above logic and reality. And what happened in California is just a cascade of failing progressivism, whether it's the wildfires and them, focusing on DEI and cutting the budgets so they could give money to the homeless instead of filling fire hydrants. But also now you're seeing in the aftermath this looting happening because criminals in California have been able to run wild and victimize innocent people, even at the worst times. And now Gavin Newsom, is trying to save his political career, because the first thing he did last Friday was go on the Pod Bros podcast with the former Obama aides and staffers to try and save his political career while LA was still on fire. So he's interested in trying to have a future. So are the Democrats supporting him. He's not really interested in solutions or making this better.
Okay, the worst part of this to me, Governor, is all of it was preventable. In California, they're known for wildfires and Santa Ana winds. In my state of Florida, it's known that it has a lot of hurricanes. In the state of Florida, guess what? You need Category 5 storm windows and doors. In most places, they have reestablished building codes if you're in condos to make sure that they are up to speed so they won't collapse in the midst of a Cat 5 hurricane. That is simple, basic common sense, knowing there are predictable events that will happen. Why didn't they prepare for this?
Because they've lost their minds. I mean, let's just look at their policies and what they've done.
That's a good answer. They lost their minds.
No, I mean, they really have. They've lost their minds. And they don't seem to understand that they are responsible for the policies they've put in place. What's most offensive to me is somebody who's a governor for almost 11 years, is to watch Gavin Newsom pretend that he has nothing to do with this. The worst thing that an elected official can do in the face of a crisis is somehow make it about himself, not about himself and responsibility, but about, gee, I just don't know. People didn't tell me the facts, and they didn't treat me right. No, you stand up and you accept responsibility for the things that you could have done. You don't have to accept responsibility for the fire itself, but his willingness to throw everyone around him into the fire and to not recognize the horrendous human suffering that these people of California, the rich, the poor, and everyone in between, have gone through and are still going through. That's what, to me, is incredibly offensive. No public official should be this tone deaf and this plain stupid.
And now the LA fire chief saying that city officials failed us, that they expect water and hydrants, saying that the firefighters weren't made aware that the Santa Ynez reservoir was empty, and saying that the LAFD is underfunded and understaffed. I mean, little too late. Maybe ahead of time, you might have wanted to retire if they didn't pay attention, knowing that this would be the predictable outcome. Katie Pavlich and soon-to-be Ambassador Huckabee, thank you. It seems like Hollywood elites, they are finally waking up to the failures of liberal leadership. Maria Shriver said that Los Angeles cannot continue with the status quo leadership. Khloe Kardashian went so far as to call the LA mayor, Karen Bass, a joke. Actor Robert Davi echoed many others in saying Gavin Newsom should be thrown out of office. Robert left California 3 years ago. He lives in my free state of Florida, and he joins us now with more. Why did you leave California?
Autopilot
How many?
mode
I think you were there 30 years.
Well, first off, thank you. 46 years, Sean, and thank you for having me, and congratulations with you and Ainsley. And my heart goes out to all my friends in California that have lost their homes. I left California, first off, because the woke policies, the liberal policies in the schools that I saw encroaching on my kids. I have a 5-year-old as my youngest. I have 8 kids, encroaching on their mental health in terms of wokeism and the confusion. But beyond that, also the policies of Gavin Newsom. When Rick Caruso lost the election, even though he went as a Democrat, for political reasons, of course, he had good policies. The left of Hollywood, I blame the left of Hollywood. Those politicians, Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, all the politicians, we have to make Hollywood accountable because the politicians do what they do. We know that Gavin Newsom's what he is. He's been like that in San Francisco. He gave $1 billion contract to the Chinese to do masks. We know that in 1990, Pete Wilson wanted to have reservoirs in California, but the left stopped it. And a lot of that left is the Hollywood left that is bought and paid for by you got the Schumer, the Schiffs, the Pelosi's, the Gavin Newsoms that go up to there, that schmooze and canoodle with the Hollywood elites, and they do get attention to issues in California. Larry Elder was slandered by the people. He should have won that election for governor, or at least so in the recall.
Robert, I hate to tell you,
terrible, Sean, what's happening.
If he ran today, I would argue he would win. If Kamala runs after him, I would argue the odds are very high that she's going to win. I mean, look at, for example, Donald Trump is coming into office. I don't think Republicans are going to appropriate funds to rebuild, which, by the way, I support for my fellow Americans in California. I don't care what their politics are. However, there's got to be conditions along with rebuilding money if people don't have it, and the conditions have got to be that you have to prevent this from happening again. You know, take the money from the LA ports going green, take the money that you want for the wind turbines, and maybe use that money to have fire hydrants that work. Maybe practice the science of forestry. Maybe fill your reservoirs and make sure everybody, the state, local officials, are on the same page. This is not complicated.
No, Sean. And the other issue that's shocking to me is that you don't have a society or a culture that's in Hollywood that wants to change. You had people that were voting for Karen Bass or Rick Caruso. Gavin Newsom comes along, and they don't want to change. They don't want to move from their typical behavior, their voting behavior, even though we saw the policies are wrong. I was one of the first Trump supporters. I wrote about it on Breitbart. You know this. Other people know this. In 2015. And yet the blowback from the Hollywood community, now people are waking up a little bit. America's been burning for decades, not just California. And my heart goes out again to all those people that lost their homes. But it didn't have to happen. As you said before, the forestry, just cleaning the brush. How about desalinization plants? Find some new technology. But you know what? Gavin Newsom wants to have California 2.0. What does that mean? Single-family homes. You can now build multiple family homes. I think this is part of the WEF. There's a part of me that feels there's something much more nefarious going on, Sean, much more nefarious going on, because it makes no sense. We had fires 2 years ago in California. 2018, Malibu was on fire. People lost their homes. A friend of mine, Josh Brolin, left California after the fire. Now, what goes on here? How can you not learn from that lesson?
I've tried to have civil conversations with Gavin. He's reluctant. He's resistant. He seems to have people around him that only think the way he does. No contrarian views, no openness. He's angry at Elon Musk. He's angry at Donald Trump. He's angry at critics. And meanwhile, there was a lot that could have been done that was not done here, and doesn't want to have that conversation. Robert Davi, we appreciate you.
Autopilot
Thank you.
mode enabled.
Now, earlier tonight, the DOJ did release Special Counsel David Weiss's highly anticipated report on the investigation into Hunter Biden. Here to break it all down, very damning for Joe Biden. JustTheNews.com founder, editor-in-chief, investigative reporter John Solomon. It is devastating to Joe Biden. Now, I know we're going to see in the next week. I would anticipate he pardons his brother. I'll go further. Anthony Fauci, Liz Cheney, Penny Thompson. You might want to add to the list, but he should probably pardon himself.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. In all my conversations with White House officials, Joe Biden himself hasn't isn't mentioned as someone he's considering pardoning, but the others are clearly people that they're considering right now. Yeah, this is a damning report. Why? Because it says Joe Biden lied to the American public when he said his son was a victim of a political persecution. Now, keep in mind who is saying this. This is the same prosecutor, David Weiss, who originally gave Hunter Biden the sweetheart deal, which got scuttled when the IRS whistleblowers came forward and told us there was political interference in the case. So this is not a big conservative guy trying to win points on Fox News. He's trying to tell the American people, your president, as he's going out the door, lied to the American people by saying his son was a victim of political prosecution when he was treated like every other subject. He committed a crime. He traded on the family name. These are all conclusions in the report. He made millions trading on that family name. Then he didn't pay taxes on it. And then Joe Biden tried to falsely portray it as something other than what it was, a criminal scheme. It's not a very thorough report. It's only 27 pages.
What was the worst part to you? What was the worst part of this report to you?
I think the best part for the American people is that in the final statement of the United States government, it is acknowledged that Hunter Biden committed a crime, that his father tried to cover it up by lying and saying this was political persecution, and that he made millions trading on the family name. You and I started reporting on that in 19. James Comer, Ron Johnson, Jim Jordan, all of us who went and looked at these facts, we were called conspiracy theorists. We were called Russian propagandists. At the end of the day, we were right. And the Biden family and the Democrats and their news media allies and their intelligence community allies, they misled us. Tonight, the final verdict of the United States government is Hunter Biden committed a crime. Joe Biden covered it up. And there was no political prosecution. This was merited criminal activity that needs to be prosecuted.
Appreciate the report. John Solomon, JustTheNews.com. Here now with more reaction. Author of the brand new book. It's called All the President's Money. He's the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer. Never once did I ever speak to my son, my brother, or anybody for that matter about their private business deal. Pictures of Joe and Hunter and foreign business partners. You chronicle in your book how Joe Biden spent most of his life making under $200,000 a year. Yet he owns two, multi-million-dollar mansions. I'd like to know how he got the money. In Hunter's laptop from hell, does he not implicate his own father? Half my income goes to Pops. What account should we take the money out to pay for Pops' home repairs? Then the pictures, speak volumes. You chronicle all of this in your new book. How much money did they make? How much money did Joe get? And do you believe Joe Biden committed a crime based on your meticulously researched book?
You can't make this up.
I did not share classified information. I did not share it. With your ghostwriter? With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not.
My team and I conducted a thorough, independent investigation. We identified evidence that the president willfully retained classified materials after the end of his vice presidency when he was a private citizen. This evidence included an audio-recorded conversation during which Mr. Biden told his ghostwriter that he had, quote, just found all the classified stuff downstairs, end quote. When Mr. Biden said this, he was a private citizen speaking to his ghostwriter in his private rental home in Virginia. We also identified other recorded conversations during which Mr. Biden read classified information aloud to his ghostwriter.
Yeah. Anyway.
You can't make this up.
I did not share classified information. I did not share it. With your ghostwriter? With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not.
My team and I conducted a thorough, independent investigation. We identified evidence that the president willfully retained classified materials after the end of his vice presidency when he was a private citizen. This evidence included an audio-recorded conversation during which Mr. Biden told his ghostwriter that he had, quote, just found all the classified stuff downstairs, end quote. When Mr. Biden said this, he was a private citizen speaking to his ghostwriter in his private rental home in Virginia. We also identified other recorded conversations during which Mr. Biden read classified information aloud to his ghostwriter.
Yeah. Anyway.
You can't make this up.
I did not share classified information. I did not share it. With your ghostwriter? With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not.
My team and I conducted a thorough, independent investigation. We identified evidence that the president willfully retained classified materials after the end of his vice presidency when he was a private citizen.
What's the statute of limitations on a misdemeanor in New York?
1 year.
The business records case is a misdemeanor, correct?
The underlying crime, the falsifying business records, yes, that's a misdemeanor charge.
So the only way to get to a felony is by committing it, or is by in concealment of another crime.
Correct.
And each one of those crimes has specific elements.
That's right.
And you have to prove, in order to get a conviction at trial, you have to prove every element of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt, right? That's just traditionally how this works.
That is the right way to do it.
So in the indictment, did they put the underlying crime?
No, they did not. They only described it as other crimes.
Okay. And in the jury instructions, did they put the specific underlying crime?
No, the falsifying business records was described in the jury instructions. There was some brief description of the New York State election law violation, but there was no description given of the choice of three crimes. There was a description given of falsifying business records, which was pretty ironic because it was falsifying business records to falsify business records.
So, and that's also a misdemeanor, right?
That should be, yeah.
So you have 2 + 2 = 6. Like if you commit 2 misdemeanors, you get to the felony statute of limitations, which they had to get or they could have never brought the case.
That's correct. But there's some more question marks regarding the statute of limitations. It's not cut and dry because the time that Donald Trump spent out of New York could be used to toll the statute of limitations. That was the ruling in the Court of Appeals Harvey Weinstein case. He argued that the time that he spent out of California should not have told it, out of New York, that is, in California, should not have told the time limitations, but the Court of Appeals ruled against him on that issue. So that's, I think, how they get around the statute of limitations problem in this case.
So was the election law case a federal election law or state election law underlying crime?
It seemed like it was charged as both. When we got to the jury instructions, there's a violation of New York election law charged, but then there's one among the 3 charges underlying is an unspecified violation of federal election law.
And then the third one was tax violation, right?
Also unspecified.
So all 3 of those underlying crimes have significantly different elements of the crime.
That is correct.
Were any of the elements of those crimes listed?
No, not at all.
So, this is important, and it might not be as robust or anything, but when you defend a client in court, if you don't know what the elements of the crime you're defending, how do you mount a defense?
You can't. That's the very issue of fundamental fairness that I referenced. You, as a defendant, are entitled to know what the charges are against you so that you can defend against those charges. Donald Trump was never made aware of what the extent of the charges were against him until the end of the trial.
And the elements of the crime go in the jury instructions. I mean, traditionally, that's how it works. Federal court, state court in North Dakota, state court in Minnesota. I've been in all of these different jurisdictions. You actually get the elements of the underlying crime, correct? Any
time that I instructed a jury, I instructed them what the elements of the crime were.
And instead, in this case, they got a grab bag.
They got a choice of 3 when it came to the underlying crimes, and we don't even know which ones they chose. So we don't know whether or not they could have been unanimous on those 3 or not. That's another failing of the jury instruction.
So not only did we have not the elements of the crime, but we had 3 different crimes with 3 vastly different elements of the crimes.
All unspecified.
None of them in the indictment. The elements of the crimes weren't in the bill of particulars. Last hearing, I had the bill of particulars waved at me like it was some kind of magic document that flew in here with its own cape.
So the statement of facts only describes a series of allegations, a series of actions that it's believed that Donald Trump took. None of them describe any criminal activity. None of them describe any, they don't describe any elements of any crime.
And that's why you believe, as do I, that when this goes on appeal, there's going to be significant legal issues to argue that the jury never actually got them put in front of them.
I have very little doubt that this matter will be reversed on appeal and based upon these issues.
Because I've actually been pretty, I mean, I believe jury trials are still the best way to determine guilt and innocence. I just believe juries are only as good as the information put in front of them. So, and with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman.
5 minutes ago, she'd never play piano. Can you believe believe she's been playing 1 week. And that's just 2 months. And him, 6 months playing with the Ridley method. And that's 1 year of playing. This is how fast you can learn the piano with the Ridley method, a new way that allows you to master the piano faster and easier than traditional methods, so that you can get to the fun of playing piano right now. If you take traditional piano lessons or watch YouTube videos or use apps, it could take you 10 or 15 years to master the piano. Learning piano takes forever! My name is Stephen Ridley, and I've been a concert pianist for more than 10 years. But more importantly, I've helped more than 1 million students learn the piano with this new method.
I was dreaming my whole life that I want to learn on piano. I didn't expect that it can be that fast.
I'm very happy because now I'm writing my own songs and I felt so empowered and supported.
So after about 3 weeks of practice, but I can play whatever I want.
Oklahoma for his leadership on this, and you know, we're just getting started here. So I'm very excited, as I know all of us are, to embark on a serious mission of not just government waste, but pulling in our government spending to make it make sense and more towards a balanced budget. Mr. President, before I begin, I would like to say a few words about the tragedy unfolding on the West Coast. I know many of us have been looking at the television and watching the structure fires and heard from friends who have children there or themselves there, and I think it's just unimaginable. So I just want to let them know in California that we're praying for them and their families, for their safety, and that hopefully this will all become under control sooner than later. But I would, I've seen this on the TV, and I would say it from this podium that I urge all residents, if you are told to evacuate, don't waste any time. It sounds like quick and fast evacuations are smart and are being advised. So please be super careful and as we move through this tragedy. You know, Americans are resilient people, but
goodbye blood pressure meds. I'm throwing them all away. Why? Because after hearing Dr. Livingood, I don't need them.
The person who should be applauded is the president who did the most selfless thing that anybody's done since George Washington. And that's really the truth. And all the rest of it will be long gone and forgotten. And so I'm just very proud of where we are in the state of the world right now, which I think many people are surprised by. And I think we're all very excited for the future.
In a year already filled with scandals, Hollywood's most recent drama is around none other than George Clooney, a name that means elegant, charm, and movie royalty. However, 2024 has not been kind to the beloved celebrity, whose career is currently in ruins after a widely known confrontation with Real Time's caustic host Bill Maher. Tensions between two of the biggest names in entertainment grew, as what began as a failed political ad turned into a complete public spectacle. A political misstep becomes a career crisis. Clooney's problem started with what seemed to be a simple effort to maintain his political standing in a changing society. In order to make an impact on voters and draw attention to his action, his team created a political advertisement.
Before you cast your vote in this election, think about how it'll impact the people you care about the most. Remember, you can vote any way you want, and no one will ever know.
Do your patriotic duty?
You bet I did, brother. What happens in the booth stays in the booth.
But the outcome was catastrophic. Charges of Boeing and a lack of touch with regular Americans dominated public discourse as critics slammed the advertisement as tone-deaf. The most heated part of the advertisement was when Clooney told a young voter, "What happens in the booth remains in the booth," presumably in an effort to portray voting as a personal and national duty. The public, on the other hand, thought it was outdated and arrogant. One business observer said it was intended to inspire, but it merely alienated. The criticism was fast and severe, and Clooney's carefully groomed image suffered on social media. The real-time rejection. Clooney went on an intense media tour in an attempt to take back control of the story. His planned appearance on Bill Maher's Real Time, where he aimed to win over viewers with charm, humility, and unique political views, was at the very core of this attempt. However, Maher, who is famous for his firm position on celebrity exploitation, was not entirely thrilled. According to media reports, Maher immediately dismissed Clooney's original proposal, telling HBO executives that Real Time is not a platform for celebrity rehabilitation. Unbothered, the actor's team came back with an advertisement as tone-deaf. The most heated part of the advertisement was when Clooney told a young voter, "What happens in the booth remains in the booth," presumably in an effort to portray voting as a personal and national duty. The public, on the other hand, thought it was outdated and arrogant. One business observer said it was intended to inspire, but it merely alienated. The criticism was fast and severe, and Clooney's carefully groomed image suffered on social media. The real-time rejection. Clooney went on an intense media tour in an attempt to take back control of the story. His planned appearance on Bill Maher's Real Time, where he aimed to win over viewers with charm, humility, and unique political views, was at the very core of this attempt. However, Maher, who is famous for his firm position on celebrity exploitation, was not entirely thrilled. According to media reports, Maher immediately dismissed Clooney's original proposal, telling HBO executives that Real Time is not a platform for celebrity rehabilitation. Unbothered, the actor's team came back with a revised plan that promised stunning revelations and immediate responses to critics. Maher declined once more, claiming that his devoted audience, who tuned in for sharp political commentary rather than Hollywood melodrama, would be offended by such an appearance. The last straw was when Clooney personally contacted Maher and offered an open, unscripted dialogue. According to insiders, Maher firmly established Clooney's position as a champion of his program's ethics by telling him directly that his show was not a place for redemption tales. One observer said Maher did not just close the door, he bolted it shut. Bill Maher and Real Time. The host of HBO's Real Time, Bill Maher, is famous for his clever banter, strong beliefs, and insightful political analysis. With a wide range of guests, including politicians and intellectual celebrities, the show has developed into a platform for uncensored discussion since its launch in 2003. Maher has a unique style, challenging his guests and analyzing current topics by mixing humor and pure honesty. Real Time prioritizes important discussions over shallow conversation, compared to many talk shows that depend on celebrity visits. Maher is one of the most controversial personalities on television because of his ability to break through political noise and deliver criticism. He is a respected voice among those looking for truth, since he has not been afraid to challenge Hollywood's influence on politics and culture. Maher has made Real Time stand out in an increasingly controversial media environment by putting the integrity of his show above theatrics. Clooney's desperation and Maher's jabs. The tension between Clooney and Maher did not arise overnight. Their history is full of moments, subtle and not so subtle criticism. Back in 2017, Maher made headlines when he questioned Clooney's political involvement during an interview, saying, "George Clooney is a great actor, but when it comes to politics, I'm not sure he's always playing his strongest role." In 2020, during Maher's speech about the impact of celebrities in elections, the subtle criticism reappeared. Maher said, "Actors think their political endorsements carry the weight of an actual argument. Spoiler alert, they don't. Because Clooney had been a vocal promoter of several Democratic candidates that year, those who were familiar with Maher's approach knew exactly who he was referring to. In one episode, Maher said, "Actors think their political opinions carry more weight than their box office failures." He never specifically named Clooney, but it was obvious what he meant, and anyone following the story could figure it out. Maher had previously argued with a major Hollywood figure. Similar conflict surfaced in 2019 after Maher called Jennifer Lawrence's campaign well-meaning but misguided, and criticized her for voicing strong political opinions. Lawrence survived the storm by standing by her principles, but Clooney's position appeared more vulnerable because the public was watching him closely at all times. Now, before we continue with this story, let's take a moment to show us your support by clicking that like and subscribe button. A position in Hollywood. Clooney's situation turns an insight into an overall change in Hollywood mentality. Even the most famous celebrities, who were once impassable, are now vulnerable to public opinion and social media criticism. In an attempt to separate themselves from controversy, studios have become extra cautious when it comes to working with controversial characters. In 2024, George Clooney was fired from a multi-million-dollar contract with Warner Brothers due to controversial political statements. The deal, which included plans for an Ocean's 14 movie and possible sequels, was canceled due to Warner Brothers CEO David Zaslav's fear of offending the studio's primary audience. Clooney, who considered the Ocean's franchise a turnaround in his career, was in jeopardy, and still is. He got the lucrative job by accepting a cameo in The Flash, despite previous criticism of his portrayal of Batman. George Clooney's iconic Ocean's franchise, portraying him as Danny Ocean, which has seen significant success, was canceled. A project aimed at reviving the franchise and boosting Clooney's reputation has led to him taking on independent, low-budget projects to restore his reputation and controversies. Clooney's attempts to regain his reputation in the present environment were rejected, even by sites that are known for their daring and uncensored content. Clooney was reportedly turned down for an appearance on The Howard Stern Show, which is known for its controversial interviews because of his damaged reputation. One Business Insider said, "If Stern is cautious, you know things are serious."
Autopilot mode enabled.
A tale of two strategies. For Maher, this was a deliberate stance, rather than just a professional choice. Maher built himself as an upholder of authenticity, committed to preserving the integrity of his show by declining to invite Clooney. Maher is accused of telling a coworker, "It is not about rating, it is about principle." But the stakes were far higher for Clooney. A single dangerous ad and the resulting backlash now defined his career, which had been built on charisma and affability. Clooney's anger went to Hollywood as a whole as his conflict with Maher intensified. Sources said he was in full meltdown mode. The fallout and the future. Hollywood's biggest scandal of the year is the rivalry between Clooney and Maher, which shows the evolution of the entertainment industry. Stars can no longer avoid controversy by relying only on their allure. Public responsibility is now a crucial factor. Clooney's future remains hanging in the air. His opportunities for reconciliation diminish. Big studios distance themselves from him, and talk shows reject him. It remains to be seen if he can pull off a comeback or if he falls into history. Regarding Maher, his stubborn position has only reinforced his reputation as a critical analyst who is not prepared to sacrifice ethical principles for the sake of celebrity theatrics. The issue is beyond a talk show host's refusal to comply or a single actor's mistake. The design highlights an overall Hollywood crisis in which even the biggest stars have to adjust to a time of more criticism. So what is your take on George Clooney's predicament? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Thanks for watching.
Your future is at your fingertips. Take advantage of the flexibility and diversity of futures trading with Ninja Trader, the #1 rated future.
Autopilot mode disabled.
The ship is on fire! Problem solved, sir. The ship is on fire. Spotter airborne. Torpedoes, dead ahead. Enemy battleship sunk. Destroyed. Our team has taken the lead. Severely damaged. Victory is in sight.
Let's see. One more and that will help me. God, he's just taking forever, man. Seem to be, bro. 3 days. Well, we got the Rhode Island. 13 done. Battleship. me down. Alright. Damn, that was a good little board right there. There's 10. Heck yeah. Got mediocre for the rest, I know. Jewelry plotting up. Damn boss. House us now. Lord knows where we'll buy this. We can get this. Yeah, man. I got wild on the bear, I think. First guy though. Yeah. Lordy, man. All right, brother. Picture for a bit. Watched the local news there, so I'll be